The story of Dune is probably the dictionary definition of the 50s Xanatos pileup. As every faction has their own agenda, and with two exceptions, every faction has one thing about their plan that nobody knows except one or two, and which they're afraid of people knowing. There are two exceptions to parts of this rule. Now, the main factions, the ones who really matter, are House Harkonnen, the Bene Gesserit, the Spacing Guild, the Emperor, and by extension his forces and his right-hand man, Count Hasimir Fenrig, House Atreides, and by extension the Fremen. So let's go through these in turn. Let's start with the Emperor. The Emperor's trump card in pretty much any conflict that he has is that he has quite possibly the best troops in the galaxy. The Sardaukar. Crack shock troops with undying loyalty to the Emperor and trained on a planet that is kept secret. That secret being that the Sardaukar trained on the prison planet of Seleucus Secundus, with all of their members being inmates. Seleucus Secundus, however you pronounce it, is one of the hardest, toughest planets in the galaxy, one which is barely habitable, with the only comparable planet being Arrakis. Which means whoever is in control of Arrakis could potentially, if they figure things out, produce a fighting force that is comparable to his, making them not only a political rival, but a military one. Emperor Shaddam IV suspects this of Duke Leto Atreides and allies with House Harkonnen because of this. However, the financial value that comes from having the monopoly of the harvesting and export of spice from Arrakis means that it's just too valuable as a tool to placate other noble houses for House Carino to hold on to it themselves. Additionally, it would probably draw attention to the fact that the Sardaukar are from Seleucus Secundus, or possibly also Dune. There's an amusing bit later in the book, where Shaddam's paranoia over this whole thing almost causes him to get House Harkonnen, in particular the Baron, thinking about this as well. The Fremen Rebellion goes on, and House Harkonnen has been put in charge of Dune. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, to replenish the supply of workers and spice harvesting, tells the Emperor he's been sending prisoners to work the spice fields, and was even considering sending them to fight the Fremen. The Emperor suddenly gets chilly for no explicable reason, which confuses the hell out of Baron Harkonnen. Now, only two other factions know this secret. One of them is House Atreides, who has indeed figured out the source of the Sardaukar, or at least has some very strong suspicions based on information from Gurney Halleck and others, and the other being the Bene Gesserit. The Gesserit, during their earlier attempts to get the Kwisatz Haderach, tried to use colonists on Seleucus Secundus in an attempt to use the rough environment to make a more spiritually and mentally disciplined people. However, House Carino invaded and turned into their prison planet. We see this, what's implied to be this, when Lady Jessica drinks the water of life. Now, the Bene Gesserit are a more political force, and their political goal is to, as I mentioned during the synopsis, create the Kwisatz Haderach, a precognitive who can perceive things that the women of the Bene Gesserit cannot. House Atreides knows this through Lady Jessica. Well, sort of. She hasn't really told this to the Duke. And Count Fenrig of House Carino may know this, as he was an earlier attempt to get a Kwisatz Haderach. Now, the Spacing Guild, in order to fold space, needs tremendous psychic powers to basically know where everything in the cosmos may be at any one time. And then, of course, to fold space itself. Paul Atreides is a void in their perception. They cannot see him or otherwise perceive him, which frightens them tremendously. The reason this is the case is because he is the Kwisatz Haderach, but they don't know the concept, so they don't know why this is, they just know that it is. House Carino basically knows this because, well, the Spacing Guild implied it to them, and Paul's knows this for reasons that we'll get into later. House Harkonnen's secret isn't really a secret, because they have no secret. This sounds silly, but everyone treats them like they have some grand master plan, that they have wheels within wheels within wheels to influence the political structure of the galaxy for generations to come, because everyone else has that, right? Except they don't. Baron Harkonnen wants House Atreides taken out because of the ancient vendetta between their houses. That's it. His plan to do this is very involved and calculated, but the end goal is just take out House Atreides. As far as goals for having his children or grandchildren be emperor, those plans exist, but those plans are intended to be done through, political alliances and marriages, not through usurping the throne and a coup d'etat that takes out the emperor. Rather than using Dune to create an army of super soldiers and that sort of thing. Finally, we come to House Atreides. Putting aside Leto's plan, which is actually fairly modest, to increase Leto's standing and get more political power for the independent houses, or the lesser houses, Paul wants revenge for his father, and when he realizes that the galactic system is as a whole basically responsible for what's happened to him and his family, he wants to shake up the system. Had no one acted against House Atreides, it's likely everything would have been fine, and the status quo would not have suffered the galactic table flip that it experienced by the conclusion of the story. In fact, if you were to look at the story from the perspective of the Emperor, this would fit the structure of a tragedy. The Emperor falls, and House Carino's basically is set back to one planet through actions entirely of their own making. And at any time they could have probably stepped away and saved themselves, but they didn't. In any case, House Atreides was nearly wiped out. Paul and Jessica fled to the hands of the Fremen, which ultimately led to them being supplied with everything they needed to extract their revenge because of their other two secrets. The first belongs to the Fremen in particular. This is kind of the Fremen secret. Now, Liet Kynes, the Imperial Planetologist, knows this, and it's theoretically possible he may have disclosed this to the Emperor, but considering that Liet Kynes had gone native, odds are pretty good he hadn't. He respected the Fremen too much. This secret is the knowledge of how spice fits into the Dune ecosystem, and that effectively, spice is the excrement of a adolescent Shai-Hulud, the massive sandworms that travel the deserts of Arrakis. The Fremen have a close relationship with the sandworm, and know that, in turn, sandworms can be killed outright with water. Thus, they can kill sandworms, although they normally wouldn't, because they have a reverential relationship with them, and limit or end the production of spice on Dune. This is, by the way, why the ending of the film version of Dune, the David Lynch version, with Paul causing it to rain, is incredibly stupid, but that's something for another time. The second is because Paul, as the Kwisatz Haderach, knows everyone's secrets. The Emperors, the Spacing Guilds, the Bene Gesserit, everybody. Bene Gesserit knows that Paul's bloodline should be able to produce the Kwisatz Haderach, but they don't know he's it. He's the goal that they've been trying to get to for generations, and they got it early, and they got it without knowing it, and they don't control it. The Spacers can't read Paul, but they don't know why. And that's because they don't know anything aside from the fact that they just can't read or predict anything about him. It's because when their precognition runs into Paul's precognition, the Guild's precognitive abilities basically go down the he knows that I know that he knows that I know hole and just shut down. There are a couple other sub-schemes here and there, like Leto's Mentat Thorfinn Hawat being captured and enslaved by the Harkonnen after Baron Harkonnen's Mentats killed in when Leto triggered the tooth, and Thorfinn trying to undermine the efforts of the Harkonnen from the inside, but they are not quite as big a factor, in some ways more than others, but I want to leave something for you to discover on your own, because I don't want to give away the whole story here. There's lots of great subsidiary bits to the story, excellent characterization for the cast, and really, you need to read this book. If you've seen whether or not you've seen the movie, whether or not you've seen the television series, there is so much depth to this that even the 6-hour Sci-Fi Channel miniseries, 4.5 hour, however long it was, still didn't get everything. There are little bits and pieces of depth and intricacy that were really lost by the experience. I definitely recommend checking out this book in whatever form you can get a hold of it. Novel, audiobook, whatever. So, as of this recording, this coming Saturday, when this video goes out, will be my 24-hour live stream for Extra Life. So, if you'd like to contribute some money to help a worthy cause of helping sick kids, both those who are in desperate need of medical care and those who, to be blunt, aren't going to make it and are in hospice care, to provide them a comfortable place for their last few days, please give to the good cause of Doernbecher. There'll be a link below in the show notes. Donate to Extra Life. All money donated will go to Doernbecher. Additionally, there will be the live stream on my Twitch channel this coming Saturday, 24 hours. If you're interested in watching, please subscribe to my Twitch channel or follow it or what have you. Link also below in the show notes. And I look forward to seeing you in the chat there. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time, or on Saturday, whichever comes first.